Hey, I'm Brandon Cross, the founder of Hoyak. Do you have a brilliant idea or challenge you need to solve, but you're not sure how to execute it? That's where I come in. I am a software engineer, a business process analyst, and a project manager. I have the experience you need to figure out what it will take to get your idea off the ground and execute it from concept to launch. So, how do we go about executing your brilliant idea? The first question people often ask is how much it's going to cost to make my idea happen. I want to tell you right now, that is the last question to be asking. Actually, I'm going to quickly explain why that isn't even the right question to ask. But first, there's a few things I need you to understand. Let's think about building an app like we would think about building a custom home. If you want to build a custom home, you might find a home builder and sit down with them. Look over existing plans for pre existing homes. Often you customize some tiny details about the house. For example, where windows are. Maybe change around some walls. Pick the type of countertops, appliances, fixtures. These changes really have a straightforward price alteration from the base of the home. This model is kind of similar to taking some kind of off the shelf template, customizing the colors, the verbiage, and maybe adding a couple small details. The template's often used by many, but the end result's one of a kind. This model works well when you're doing something like building a simple website. But what if you want to build something completely custom? What if there's not a template available to start with? This is a common situation for building a fully featured app that does something unique based on a process like your brilliant idea. So, for a completely custom home, there's more considerations that one would take than they would based on a template. Usually, you need an engineer and an architect to devise a plan. You need CAD work done. Measurements have to be taken. Surveys of the land where the structure will be built have to be done. Devising the foundation alone can take quite a bit of work. The materials have to be selected. Plumbing and electrical needs to be engineered carefully. All this work is done for you up front in the template designed home, but this is a completely custom home we're talking about now. This means you have to build the template. That work costs a lot more. So two identical custom homes might take considerably more work if the first one was used to design a template for the second one. The point of all this is to get you in the right mindset that you're about to embark on building that completely custom home when you develop an app. Maybe there are some shortcuts with templates that can be used. For the most part, there's engineering and architectural work that needs to be done up front. That is if you want to know the final cost. Now, is all this necessary? As you build the home, maybe you want to make changes on the fly. Maybe you want a completely master planned home built up front. The way many truly custom homes come out, the buyer asks for various changes along the way. This is what we call scope creep. The thing about building an app is it's just like building a completely custom home. There are changes that need to often be made on the fly, things that get decided later as the app comes together. While there may be a master plan, sometimes there's no way to route the plumbing the way that was originally envisioned unless the architects and engineers did extensive work up front. That means things often get shifted, moved around, or modified as you go. And all that translates into a very dynamic budget. Let me ask you a question. Let's say you find someone who's a great general contractor. This person's a pro at all kinds of home building related tasks. They know how to build a wall, install a sink, even add light fixtures, swap out a hot water heater. They may have experience with roofing, laying brick, or even pouring a foundation. Is this the same person that can engineer and plan how to design that foundation? Can they draft architectural plans? Oftentimes, the answer is no. They are executors, not engineers or planners. If you ask them how much it will cost to build the entire home, they won't be able to give you an accurate estimation without proper planning. Ask a typical software developer how much it will cost to build a given app. It's like asking a construction worker how much it will cost to build a house. They might give you a number, but it's not based on reality. The only way to know the true number to build that home is to have it completely master planned. The planning can cost almost as much as the construction, however. So, many people want to find a shortcut. That's where mindset comes in. If you are setting out to build an app and you need to know how much the entire project will cost up front, you can't deviate from that estimate much. You have to invest in a lot of planning and not just a little investment. It can take well over 100 hours to properly plan an app that's pretty small. That's just to get a price tag for that. On top of it, there's a huge shortage of software developers and especially a shortage of experienced software engineers. The only people charging less are people who need experience because they don't have any. What if I told you most successful projects don't do any planning at all? Instead of having a mindset of how much will this cost, taking the mindset of how far can I get tends to work way better. So I refer to this as the quantified versus non-quantified paradigm. The reflex most people have is to quantify a project, but this kind of project is better left unquantified. This is counterintuitive. The danger people get into is when they skip quantifying a project, they essentially ask a general construction worker to give them a quote for building the app. Developers get asked this all the time, but they can take hours just to scope the high level aspects. And often the client's non-committal at this point. So the developer isn't really granted the resources they need to actually give a real and accurate master plan. Many times these require multiple different resources. Solo devs don't have these resources on hand, nor do they want to hire them to speculate on a quote. So what happens in many quotes is that they are not accurate. They miss vital details or aspects of the project. It usually doesn't matter anyway, because the project morphs and changes so much along the way, the original quote and the end product don't look anything alike. At the same time, if the developer asks for a large planning budget, even if it's granted, these will miss edge cases, which are unpredictable and difficult to plan for. That's the whole point of an edge case. It's often something that occurs at the edge of the plan. These are mechanics that come into play after the fact. Edge cases creep the scope. It happens on just about every app that gets built. This means that even if you plan for a predictable cost to build the app, you still encounter costs you didn't expect. So, who eats these costs? Making the devs eat them for poor planning can seriously reduce morale, leading your dev team to getting poached. Speaking of dev teams getting poached, if you're running a small dev team, you recruited yourself, maybe you're hiring one full stack developer to do it all. That dev can walk away anytime and you have nothing. Getting another dev to pick up where they left off requires quite a bit of reverse engineering the code. This can take as much time, sometimes more, than just starting over. This is why hiring a dev directly is extremely dangerous, even if you pay them well and treat them great. I can help you solve all these issues. I have my own team of devs. I constantly am recruiting and training on processes that allow us to work together as a team. And I come from an engineering background where I understand the need for redundancy at every level. And often not just single factor redundancies either. I'm talking about multiple layers like you find on a space shuttle or an airplane. Look, I'll be frank. When somebody hits me up and the first thing out of their mouth is, how much is this idea going to cost? My reply is usually, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. That's why I want you to be in the right mindset when we meet, because I want you to focus on the execution of your idea. But if we need to get mired into the details of costs, then we need to take an approach that involves engineering and architecting and phases of iterations. If you don't do the planning, but you're fixed on a certain price tag, you end up in a quantified mindset, but your project execution ends up being non-quantified. And that is almost always fatal to the project. If you start out with a non-quantified mindset, you execute little by little, build out your vision piece by piece without being concerned about the overall total cost of ownership, then your odds of success are greatly improved. At the end of the day, it's really not about how much you can afford to spend. It's about how much your idea can raise from investors. If you're the investor and you can raise yourself whatever amount of funds are needed, then the risk is all yours and so are the rewards. If you have a brilliant idea but you don't have the funds to execute it, then you need to share the risk and rewards with others. This is how apps get built, funded, and launched. It's how successful software gets built. I can guide you through all of this, regardless of if you need quantification or not. It doesn't really matter to me. I just want you to be in the right mindset, whichever route you take. Let's schedule a call, discuss your idea, and explore what kind of quantification model makes sense for it, and go from there. Click the link below this video and schedule a call with me now.